Fresh yams, come and buy. Sweet smoked fish here. How much for this? Buy from me, fine yams here.
No, come here, my price is better.
Fresh fish, fresh fish.
People of Arogbede, gather and listen. Our great king, Oba Adigboyega, has joined the ancestors. Prince Ademola now sits upon the throne as the new king of our land. And according to the customs of our forefathers, the new king must have an abobaku. The abobaku shall be the king's closest companion and friend. He shall dine with the king and stand beside him wherever he goes. Therefore, any young man interested in this sacred position should present himself before the council of elders at the palace. A wave of uneasiness swept through the crowd. The older villagers exchanged glances. The younger ones shifted nervously. Everybody knew what an abobaku was. A man chosen to die whenever the king died. Not a servant, not a guard, not a slave, a living shadow. Silence. Heavy silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the birds seemed afraid. The town crier nodded as if expecting exactly that. Then he turned to continue his journey. "Excuse me." The voice came from somewhere behind him. The town crier froze. Slowly he turned. Under an iroko tree stood Sálákò, chewing sugarcane. Not chewing, attacking it, like a man trying to eat sweetness itself. Juice dripped down his chin, ran down his arm. He casually licked it, then smiled. "I'm interested." The entire village exploded. A woman dropped the basket on her head. An old man nearly swallowed his chewing stick. The town crier blinked twice. "Interested in what?" Sálákò frowned. "Their bákú position now. You must be joking." "I'm not. You are young and willing to die?" "I didn't say I want to die," Sálákò replied. "I said I want the position." The villagers groaned. Only Sálákò could hear about death and somehow focus on benefits. The town crier stared. "Are you serious?" Sálákò sucked more sugarcane. "Do I look like Falade, the village fool who calls himself a comedian?" The town crier slowly lowered his gong and was speechless. Not many people took Sálákò seriously. Then again, nobody ever took Sálákò seriously. Sálákò was the kind of young man who wanted wealth but hated work. When they farmed, Sálákò was sleeping and snoring like a grinding engine. Hard work was clearly beneath him. Sálákò was wandering around discussing how one day he would magically become rich or how he would find a bag of money in the bush. One afternoon, he spent 6 hours sitting beside an anthill because he heard spirits sometimes hid gold underground. Another day, he dug 3 giant holes after dreaming of buried treasure. He found nothing except angry termites. Yet his confidence never reduced. To Sálákò, hard work was for people who lacked imagination. That particular evening, after shocking the entire village, he headed home and slept peacefully as usual, the sleep of a man with absolutely nothing to lose and even less to worry about. By morning, his father, Babajide, was preparing for farm work. A hoe rested on his shoulder. A basket hung from his arm. He saw Sálákò up so early and sighed immediately. "What trouble are you planning today?" Sálákò grinned. "Babami, I'm going to work." Babajide nearly dropped his hoe. "Work?" He looked around. "This cannot be my son. Who are you and what have you done to him?" Sálákò laughed. "You people don't believe in greatness." His father narrowed his eyes. "You finally agreed to follow us to the farm?" "Farm care." Sálákò looked offended. "Me?" He spread out his borrowed white agbada dramatically. "You think I wore this magnificent cloth to chase goats and dig dirt?" Babajide rubbed his forehead. "Then where exactly are you going?" Sálákò puffed out his chest. I will be working in the palace from now on. Palace? Yes. I will dine with the king, sit among chiefs, discuss important matters, give commands. The village is about to witness a new Sálákò. Just then, his elder brother Saro emerged, carrying a machete and an empty basket. He overheard everything. Immediately, he burst into laughter. Babami, leave him. Saro adjusted the basket. He is daydreaming again. Sálákò rolled his eyes. Very soon, you'll be standing outside the palace gates, asking the guards for permission to see your famous brother. Keep farming, Egbome. That's your destiny. Mine is greatness. Saro walked past. When that day comes, wake me up. Babajide shook his head sadly. Sálákò. Yes, Baba. One day your mouth will carry you somewhere your legs cannot return from. Sálákò laughed and walked away. He thought it was another lecture. The palace gate stood taller than any building in the village. 2 guards blocked the entrance immediately. Stop there. Sálákò stopped. What? Who are you? Sálákò straightened proudly. I am Sálákò. The guards looked at each other. They laughed. We don't know any Sálákò. You will, Sálákò pointed at them, and very soon I will sack both of you for your foolishness. The guards laughed harder. One nearly fell over. Listen to this madman. I am serious. You are serious? Do you want to bet? The argument grew louder. Soon, a familiar voice interrupted. The town crier approached. The guards greeted him. The town crier pointed. Let him in. The king is expecting him. Reluctantly, they stepped aside. Sálákò smacked. I told you, your jobs are in danger. The guards groaned. Inside the palace, chiefs sat in a large circle. The king occupied the throne. Sálákò entered confidently. Then immediately remembered palace etiquette and threw himself flat. Your Majesty, may the crown rest upon your head for many years. May the royal sandals never leave your feet. May our king enjoy a long and prosperous reign. So shall it be. My name is Sálákò, son of Babajide Ayeni, grandson of... Get to the point, boy. We don't have all day. Oloyebi interrupted. Sálákò lifted his head, then stood up. Oloyebi, you don't interrupt a man when he's addressing the king. You wait your turn. That is respect. The palace exploded. Ha! You are spoiled, oh! The Yalode rose to her feet, fury blazing in her eyes. Several chiefs stood up at once, pointing accusing fingers at Sálákò. One elderly chief was so enraged that he snatched off his cap and hurled it at Sálákò. The cap missed its target completely and landed on another chief. The palace erupted into even greater chaos. The king raised his hand. Silence returned instantly. Then Oloyebi stepped forward. Kábíyèsí, you don't know this lazy boy. The king nodded. Tell me. He is trouble. He once fired a catapult at my wife's backside. He steals mangoes and cashews from people's farms. That's true, the other chief acknowledged. He chased a masquerade with fire because he believed it carried money. The king struggled not to laugh. Oloyebi pointed dramatically. This boy is chaos. Sálákò folded his arms. Hey, tell me, which one of you has never caused trouble before? Go on, point the person out for me. The chiefs exchanged irritated glances. Or is it only my own troubles that people remember? The king finally smiled, then leaned forward. Why are you here, Ogbeni Sálákò? The room became quiet. Thank you, Kábíyèsí. He straightened his shoulders, then said the words that changed his life forever. I have come for the position of Abobaku. Silence. Oba Ademola stared. The chiefs stared. Even the palace guards near the entrance exchanged confused glances. The king studied him carefully. Young man, this position is usually given to someone older, someone who fully understands the weight of such a sacrifice. Ain't I old enough, Kabisi? Sálákò quickly interrupted. The king raised an eyebrow. How old are you? 25. Sálákò puffed out his chest. Old enough to make my own decisions. The king studied him for a long moment. Then slowly, he smiled. Many men have courage in private, but few have the courage to step forward in public. Sálákò, today you have shown the heart of a true son of this kingdom. The king nodded proudly. You have chosen honor over fear. May your name be remembered with respect. Ashe Kábíyèsí, Sálákò said. The position every young man feared. The position that tied a man's life to another man's death. The position that made mothers pray their sons would never be chosen. And somehow, Sálákò wanted it and had gotten it. Several chiefs exchanged worried glances. The king leaned back on his throne. Since you have accepted the sacred responsibility of becoming my Obobaku, is there anything you wish to say or ask for? Sálákò immediately raised his hand. The chiefs groaned. The king blinked. You already have something to say? Kábíyèsí, it's a request. The room exploded. A request? Ha! Can you imagine? Olóyè Balogun nearly jumped from his seat. You just arrived here and you are already making demands from the king? Sálákò turned. No disrespect, Olóyè. There is plenty disrespect because I know you to be a greedy young man. If being Abobaku is such an honorable position, why didn't you volunteer? The palace fell silent. Then Sálákò pointed at Olóyè Balogun. Better still, the chief immediately sensed danger. Why not allow your son Femi to become Abobaku? Dead silence. Every eye in the palace shifted toward him. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared breathe loudly, because everyone knew the truth. No father wanted to watch his child die because of another man. The king slowly lifted his hand. Enough. The tension eased immediately. Then the king looked at Sálákò. What exactly is your request? Sálákò smiled. My first request. The king nodded. The two idiots outside the gate. The chiefs looked confused. What about them? I want them fired. The palace erupted. Ha! The king stared. You want me to dismiss my guards? Yes. They stopped me. The king blinked. They were doing their job. They still stopped me and humiliated me. They said a man like me had no right to stand in the same space as the king. The king sighed. The chiefs exchanged uneasy glances, silently realizing that Sálákò would be a problem even for the king. Unfortunately, tradition was tradition. The Abobaku could not be treated like an ordinary man. The king finally nodded. Very well. The chiefs groaned. The guards will be reassigned. Sálákò grinned so hard his cheeks hurt.
Sálákò. Hello, Storytime Lounge listeners. Do you think Sálákò has just become the luckiest man in the kingdom, or has he made the biggest mistake of his life? Let me know in the comment section. And now, back to the story.
By sunset, the entire village already knew. News traveled faster than wildfire. Sálákò had become the king's Abobaku. Women discussed it while fetching water. Farmers discussed it while harvesting yam. Even children abandoned games to talk about it. Nobody understood how it happened, not even Sálákò's family. When Sálákò finally returned home that evening, he was smiling from ear to ear. He pushed open the door dramatically. Baba mi, Mama mi, where are my people? His mother, Omotayo, emerged from the cooking area. The moment she saw his face, she became suspicious. Kilo de? Sálákò spread his arms. Congratulations! She frowned. For what? I have become the king's abobaku. The bowl in her hands slipped. Crash! The bowl shattered. For a moment, she simply stared. Then reality struck. Her scream shook the compound. Egbemio! She collapsed, rolled on the floor, hit her chest repeatedly. My son has killed himself. My child has buried himself alive. My son wants to die. My son wants to die. Meanwhile, Babajide, her husband, sat on a wooden stool, silent, completely silent. The face of a man carrying years of regret. He remembered every time he excused Sálákò's laziness, every time he said he will change, every time he avoided disciplining him properly. Now here they were, watching the consequences grow legs. Omotayo crawled toward him. Baba Saro, talk to your son. Talk sense into him. Babachide said nothing. His silence was heavier than any speech. At the doorway sat Saro. A large bowl of eba, fresh okra soup, rested before him. He continued eating, almost like none of this concerned him. Sálákò frowned. Egbomi, you won't see anything. Saro swallowed, then finally looked up. What should I say? I got a position in the palace. Saro nodded. Good for you. That's all. Sálákò became annoyed. Why are all of you behaving like this? Saro stood, wiped his hands, then walked toward him. For a second, Sálákò thought his brother would finally congratulate him. Instead, Saro spoke quietly. You have chosen your road. Walk it. Then he walked away. The words somehow hurt more than insults. The following morning, the entire village gathered at the palace square. Drummers played. Talking drums echoed. Chiefs occupied special seats. The king sat beneath a decorated canopy. The ceremony to officially install Sálákò as Abobako was about to begin. Villagers filled every available space. Many came out of curiosity. Others came because they genuinely wanted to see what kind of fool volunteered for such a position. Sálákò arrived wearing expensive palace clothes. The difference was immediate. Yesterday, he looked like an unemployed dreamer. Today, he looked important. People whispered, "Look at him. He already changed. Power has entered his body." The chief priest stepped forward. Traditional prayers were offered. Libations poured. Ancestors invoked. Then the king stood. From this day onward, his voice carried across the square. Sálákò shall be known as my shadow. Crowd murmured. No one shall harm him. He shall enjoy the protection of the throne. The villagers became uneasy. Some of the chiefs exchanged worried looks because they knew Sálákò, and power had just been handed to the wrong person. 3 days later, Sálákò walked into the king's private courtyard. The king was discussing trade matters with several chiefs. Sálákò interrupted. Kábíyèsí. The chiefs sighed. They already knew trouble was coming. Yes, Sálákò. I have another request. Of course he did. The king nodded carefully. What is it? Sálákò smiled. I wish to marry. One chief laughed. Finally. Another nodded. Good. Then Sálákò continued. Not one wife. The chiefs froze. 2 wives. Silence. and they must both be virgins. The entire courtyard erupted. Ha! Oloyebiyi nearly fell from his chair. The king closed his eyes briefly. Every day, every single day, Sálákò found a new way to create chaos. Yet tradition tied their hands. The king slowly nodded. If that is your request. Sálákò grinned. It is. And another thing. The chief screamed. There's another thing? Yes. I want palace guards to escort me everywhere. The king stared. Everywhere? Everywhere. Why? Sálákò puffed out his chest. So villagers can recognize importance when they see it. The king sighed. Granted. Sálákò grinned victoriously, then turned and left. The moment he disappeared from sight, Ìyá shook her head. Kábíyèsí, today it is 2 wives. Tomorrow he may ask for the moon. Nobody laughed, because deep down, everyone feared she might be right. The real trouble began the moment Sálákò realized something dangerous. Within weeks, the entire village began to feel the effects of Sálákò's new power. The first incident happened outside the palace at Ajanako's farm. Ajanako was an elderly farmer known throughout the village for growing the biggest yams. That morning, he was harvesting with his sons when he heard voices approaching. He looked up. Palace guards. 2 of them, walking proudly behind Sálákò. Immediately, Ajanaku dropped his cutlass. Ah, the king's friend. The old man bowed respectfully. Sálákò nodded. Then his eyes landed on a heap of freshly harvested yams. His eyes widened. Ajanaku? Yes, Sálákò. These yams look healthy. The old man smiled proudly. Thank you. I worked hard. I'll take 10. The smile vanished. What? 10 yams. Ajanaku blinked. My lord, these are for the market. Sálákò frowned. So? The farmer swallowed. No problem. Sálákò smiled. Good. Then he pointed. This is a friendship tax. The old man almost cried. Friendship tax? What kind of nonsense was that? But nobody argued. The guards carried the yams away. As Sálákò left, he shouted over his shoulder, Next time, greet me before I greet you. Word spread quickly. Then another incident happened. Then another. Then another. Soon farmers began hiding whenever they saw palace guards approaching. Then came the market incidents. Those were even worse. Every market day, traders prayed Sálákò stayed at home. He never did. The moment he entered the market, panic followed. Women began hiding goods. Some secretly lowered prices hoping he wouldn't notice them. Others pretended they had sold everything. Unfortunately, Sálákò noticed everything. One morning, he stopped beside a woman selling smoked fish. Good morning. The woman forced a smile. Good morning. I'll take 3. The woman handed them over. Then waited for payment. Sálákò began walking away. My money. They stopped. Oh. Sálákò smiled. You mean the gift? The woman stared. It wasn't a gift. It is now. The woman almost screamed. The palm wine sellers suffered the most. Sálákò practically moved into their drinking spots. Every evening he would arrive with guards behind him. Sit down, drink more, drink again, then stand up and leave without paying. One day, a new palm wine seller from a neighboring village didn't know who Sálákò was. After drinking 6 gourds of wine, Sálákò stood up. The seller blocked his path. Your money. The entire drinking joint became silent. Even the crickets seemed concerned. Sálákò slowly turned. Your money. Yes. The seller folded his arms. You drank. You pay. The regular customers immediately moved away. far away, like people avoiding lightning. Sálákò smiled, a dangerous smile, then pointed at himself. Do you know who I am? No, I am Sálákò. The seller shrugged. Congratulations. The crowd gasped. The man was finished, completely finished. Sálákò walked closer. I am the king's shadow. The seller laughed. Then tell your king to pay your debt. The guards grabbed him immediately. The poor man spent 3 days in a holding cell before the elders intervened. After that day, nobody ever demanded payment from Sálákò again. Unfortunately, his arrogance kept growing. Every day, every week, every month. The power changed him, or perhaps it simply revealed who he already was. Soon, even the chiefs became targets. One afternoon, the palace council gathered to discuss village matters. The king sat listening while chiefs debated farming policies. Suddenly, Sálákò entered. The meeting stopped. Sálákò looked around, then frowned. Why is there no seat for me? The chiefs exchanged glances. Oloyebi closed his eyes. Not again. The king sighed. Bring him a seat. A servant rushed forward. Unfortunately, the only available seat stood beside Oloyebi. Sálákò sat down, then looked at the chief. The same chief he had insulted during his first palace visit. A wicked smile appeared. Oloye? The chief ignored him. Oloye? Still nothing. Sálákò leaned closer. I am talking to you. The chief slowly turned. What? My feet hurt. The chief stared. And? Sálákò stretched his legs, massaged them. The palace exploded. Ha! Oloyebi's eyes widened. The king almost choked. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Sálákò smiled. I am joking. The chief sat down, relieved. Then Sálákò added, unless you actually want to. As months passed, the villagers became frustrated, very frustrated. At first, they blamed Sálákò. Then slowly, some began blaming the king. He protects him. He allows him. Maybe power has changed Kábíyèsí. The whispers spread. The king remained loved. But for the first time since ascending the throne, his reputation began suffering, and that worried the chiefs. A week later, the chiefs gathered privately with the king. Yaolode spoke first. Kábíyèsí. The king nodded. We have a problem, a serious problem. The king stared into the distance, his expression troubled, because deep down, everything they were saying was true. Sálákò had become a nuisance, a plague, a walking disaster, and yet tradition tied his hands. The bákú could not simply be replaced. The position was sacred. Removing him would create another crisis entirely. People complained about him every day. Yet, deep down, many still laughed whenever his name came up. That changed the day he crossed a line no decent man should ever cross. A line from which there would be no return. On the far edge of the village stood a small farm. Nothing extraordinary, just rows of cassava, corn stalks dancing in the wind, and 2 siblings walking together beneath the afternoon sun. Adeniyi and Abeni. Life had not been kind to them. Their parents had died years ago, leaving Adeniyi to raise his younger sister alone. And he had tried. When other young men spent their earnings on clothes and palm wine, Adeniyi spent his on school fees. When others chased enjoyment, he worked extra hours to make sure his sister never went hungry. He wasn't rich, far from it, but he was responsible. The kind of man people respected. That afternoon, he and Abeni were harvesting cassava. For once, They were smiling because there was finally good news in their lives. Abeni was getting married. Not to a villager, not to a farmer, but to a young man from the city named Samuel. A kind man, educated, successful, a man who had fallen in love with her almost immediately. Her bride price had already been paid. The wedding preparations had begun. For the first time in years, the future looked bright. Adeniyi leaned on his hoe and smiled. "In 2 weeks, you'll be gone." Abeni laughed. "I'll still visit." "You better." "I will." He shook his head. "No, you'll become a city woman. I'll come and greet you and your security guards will chase me away." Abeni burst into laughter. "Never. You'll forget us villagers." "I won't." "You will." "I won't." They both laughed. For a moment, life felt perfect. Then a shadow appeared. A shadow neither of them wanted to see. Adeniyi's smile disappeared immediately. Abeni's laughter died. Walking through the farm, with 2 palace guards behind him, was Sálákò. Adeniyi's heart sank. Not him. Anybody but him. Sálákò stopped. His eyes moved from Adeniyi to Abeni, then stopped and remained there. Too long. Far too long. Adeniyi immediately stepped closer to his sister. "Good afternoon, Sálákò." Sálákò didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on Abeni. The silence became uncomfortable, then disturbing, then frightening. Finally, Sálákò smiled. Adeniyi didn't like that smile, not one bit. "You," he pointed at Abeni. "Come here." Abeni froze. Adeniyi forced a nervous laugh. "Sálákò, she's my sister." Sálákò didn't look at him. "I know." Abeni remained where she was. Sálákò's smile disappeared. "I said, come here." Slowly, she stepped forward. Sálákò circled her, looking her over, the way a buyer examines livestock before purchase. Adeniyi's stomach twisted. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Finally, Sálákò nodded. A beautiful woman. Neither sibling spoke. Sálákò smiled again. "You belong to me now." The world seemed to stop. The guards looked uncomfortable. For a second, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then Adeniyi laughed nervously. Surely this was a joke. His voice shook. "Please, my sister is getting married soon." He forced a smile. "The bride price has already been paid. We are preparing for the wedding." Sálákò slowly turned toward him. The smile vanished. The look in his eyes changed. Cold, dangerous. "Did I ask for her life story?" Adeniyi's throat went dry. "No." "Then why are you talking so much?" Fear spread in the farm. Adeniyi immediately lowered his head. "I meant no disrespect." Sálákò looked at the guards, then back at Adeniyi, then smiled, a wicked smile. "Maybe your mouth is making you brave." No, Sálákò. "It is." Then suddenly he shouted, "Guards!" The 2 men immediately stepped forward. Adeniyi's heart dropped. "Seize him!" The guards hesitated. Only briefly. Then they obeyed. Adeniyi struggled. "Wait! No! I'm sorry! Please!" The guards pinned him to the ground. His face hit the dirt. He fought, kicked, screamed. Nothing worked. Sálákò crouched beside him. "You should have kept quiet." Then he stood and pointed toward Abeni. "Take her." The color drained from Adeniyi's face. No! One guard looked uneasy. The other stared at the ground. But neither disobeyed, because Sálákò carried the authority of the king, and fear often makes cowards of men. Abeni screamed. Adéníyì screamed louder. The farm echoed with their voices, but nobody came. Nobody. And by the time the nightmare ended, nothing was the same. The days that followed were filled with silence, the kind of silence that hurts. Abeni barely spoke, barely ate, barely slept. She sat alone most days, staring into nothing. The bright future she once dreamed about had vanished, completely vanished. Then came the final blow. Samuel arrived from the city. At first, he didn't believe the rumors. Then he learned the truth, and everything changed. The wedding was cancelled, just like that. Abeni watched him leave, without tears, without words, because some pain is too deep for crying. Adéníyì watched too, and something broke inside him that day. For days, he tried doing things the right way. He tried speaking to elders. Nothing happened. He tried speaking to chiefs. Nothing happened. Eventually, he found a way to present his complaint before the king himself. The king listened carefully. His face darkened as details emerged. The chiefs exchanged uncomfortable looks. Several looked ashamed. The king finally spoke. "I will investigate." Adéníyì stared. "Investigate?" The king nodded. "Yes." Adéníyì felt anger rising. "Investigate?" Everyone knew what happened. The guards knew. The villagers knew. Even the chiefs knew. Yet, nobody wanted to challenge Sálákò directly, because tradition protected him, because fear protected him, because power protected him. Adéníyì left the palace that day feeling empty, hopeless, broken. And then something dangerous happened. He stopped wanting justice and started wanting revenge. Over the weeks, Adéníyì learned something important. The king was a cautious man who never went anywhere without his powerful fortifications. But during the annual festival, ancient custom required him to remove them and mingle freely with guests and visiting kings. For the first time all year, the king would be exposed. The village's annual festival was only a week away. Excitement filled every corner of the kingdom. Women washed colorful wrappers and spread them beneath the sun. Young men repaired village paths. Drummers tightened animal skins across their drums. Palm wine tappers climbed trees before dawn, determined to bring the finest wine to the celebration. The festival wasn't just an event, it was the event. A time when neighboring kings visited, time when friendships were renewed, time when old disputes were settled. One afternoon, he marched through the village with 4 palace guards behind him. The villagers watched him pass. Some greeted him, some pretended not to see him. Others simply shook their heads. Sálákò loved every second of it. The attention, the fear, the whispers. To him, it felt like respect. He didn't realize respect and fear were 2 different things. As he approached his father's compound, he smiled. It had been weeks since his last visit. Perhaps now they would finally appreciate his success. Perhaps now they would admit he wasn't useless. He entered confidently. "Baba mi," no answer. "Mama mi," still no answer. Finally, his mother emerged. The moment she saw him, her expression became complicated. Not joy, not anger. Something in between. A mother who loved her son, but hated what he had become. "You came." Sálákò spread his arms. "Of course." "Have you missed me?" Omotayo forced a smile. A mother always misses her child. Something about the answer bothered him, But before he could respond, Babajide appeared. Older, more tired. The months seemed to have added years to his face. Father. Babajide nodded. Sálákò. That was all. No excitement, no praise, no congratulations. Just his name. Sálákò frowned. Before he could complain, another voice came from the doorway. Saro, his elder brother, carrying a basket of harvested vegetables. As usual. Working, as usual. Saro looked at him briefly, then continued walking. Sálákò laughed. Egbomi, still carrying baskets? Saro stopped, turned. And you are still carrying trouble? The guard struggled not to laugh. Sálákò rolled his eyes. Some people never changed. Later that evening, they sat beneath a tree. Sálákò decided to speak first. I invited all of you to stay in the palace. Silence. You refused. You would have enjoyed yourselves. Finally, Saro spoke. Enjoy what? The wealth? The comfort? The influence? Saro stared at him, then shook his head. You still don't understand. Understand what? Not everything valuable can be bought. Sálákò laughed loudly. Easy for poor people to say. Babajide closed his eyes. Omotayo looked away. Saro simply nodded. Then, after a moment, he asked, what if the king dies today? The question surprised everyone. Sálákò spat beside the tree. Again with this. Saro didn't blink. What if he dies today? Sálákò laughed. Egbomi, you are worrying for nothing. Saro remained silent. So Sálákò continued. You haven't met the king. A very young man. Strong. Healthy. He became animated now, almost excited. The man is only 35. He lived abroad before becoming king. He eats the best food. He has doctors visiting him. He exercises every morning. He doesn't drink like those old palace chiefs. He doesn't chase women. He is disciplined. Sálákò leaned back proudly. So tell me, how exactly is death supposed to catch a man like that? Nobody answered. Encouraged, he continued. The king will live long. Very long. His father ruled for many years. He will do the same. And I, he tapped his chest proudly, and I will grow old beside him. His mother lowered her head. Babajide sighed quietly. But Saro simply looked at him. Then he said something that made the air feel cold. No man outruns destiny. The words settled heavily between them. For some reason, Sálákò didn't like them. Not at all. So he stood, brushed dust from his clothes, and laughed. Continue speaking like an elder. I'll continue enjoying life. Then he left. The guards followed behind him. And as Saro watched him disappear down the road, a strange feeling settled in his chest. Almost like watching someone walk toward a cliff while celebrating. The festival finally arrived, and the entire kingdom exploded with celebration. Drums echoed through the air. Colorful fabrics danced in the wind. Visitors flooded the village. Kings from neighboring lands arrived with entourages. Warriors marched proudly. Praise singers sang. Palm wine flowed freely. Laughter filled every corner. By midday, the festival had reached its peak. The entire kingdom seemed alive. Drums thundered from every corner. Talking drums answered one another like old friends exchanging stories. Dancers spun in colorful wrappers. Children ran through the crowd laughing. Palm wine flowed like a small river. Even the elders who usually complained about noise could not hide their smiles. It was the kind of day people would remember for years. The kind of day songs would be written about. The palace grounds overflowed with visitors. Kings from neighboring villages occupied special seats beneath decorated canopies. Chiefs exchanged greetings. Wealthy merchants discussed business. Praise singers moved from group to group, showering important men with endless praise. The king sat among them, relaxed, happy. For once, he wasn't discussing disputes. For once, he wasn't listening to complaints. For once, he wasn't hearing Sálákò's name every 5 minutes. Several old friends from the city had arrived earlier that morning. Friends he had not seen since before becoming king. Meanwhile, Sálákò was enjoying himself too. Perhaps even more, because wherever he went, people made way for him. Some out of respect, most out of fear. But Sálákò couldn't tell the difference, and at this point, he no longer cared. He wore expensive traditional agbada, golden beads around his neck. 4 palace guards followed him like loyal shadows. Everywhere he walked, heads turned. To Sálákò, this was proof that destiny had finally recognized his greatness. Not far from the palace gates, Adeniyi stood quietly among the crowd. His face revealed nothing. In his hands rested a beautifully decorated calabash. Inside it was palm wine, fresh, sweet, and deadly. Months earlier, Adeniyi would never have imagined himself doing such a thing. But months earlier, his sister still had a future. Finally, he saw an opening. A palace attendant moved toward the king. Adeniyi stepped forward. "Please." The attendant paused. "This is a special gift for Kábíyèsí." The attendant examined the calabash. The aroma alone was enough to impress anyone. "This is from my family," Adeniyi continued. "The finest palm wine we have ever produced." The attendant nodded. The king often received gifts during festivals. There was nothing unusual about that. He reached for the calabash. Then another hand appeared. A familiar hand. A hand Adeniyi immediately recognized. Sálákò. "What's this?" Sálákò asked. The attendant bowed slightly. "A gift for the king." Sálákò's eyes narrowed. He took the calabash, removed the cover, then inhaled deeply. Immediately his face changed. "This smells incredible." The attendant smiled. "It must be delivered to Kábíyèsí." Sálákò nodded. "Of course." Adeniyi remained silent, watching. Sálákò looked at the wine again, then smiled, a greedy smile, the same smile that had caused so much suffering. "Don't worry," he patted the calabash. "I'll personally make sure the king receives it." The attendant seemed relieved. After all, who better than the king's shadow? Who better than I, Bákú? Sálákò walked away carrying the calabash. The festival continued around him. Music, laughter, celebration. Nobody noticed him slip away from the crowd. Nobody noticed him heading toward his private chamber inside the palace. Nobody except destiny. Once inside, he closed the door, then looked around carefully. Nobody. Good. A wide grin spread across his face. He placed the calabash on a table, removed the cover. The smell hit him immediately. Fresh palm wine, rich, sweet. Sálákò licked his lips. Ah, so this is what kings enjoy. He shook his head. The king keeps calling me his friend, yet he wants to drink this alone. He poured some into a cup, raised it, and drank. His eyes widened. Wonderful! He poured another, drank again, even better. A third cup followed, then a fourth. Soon he abandoned the cup entirely and drank straight from the calabash, laughing, smiling, enjoying himself. This is life. He wiped his mouth. Outside, drums continued playing. Inside, destiny smiled. The first pain arrived suddenly, a sharp twist inside his stomach. Sálákò frowned. Perhaps he drank too fast. It happens sometimes. He stood. The room spun slightly. His smile faded. Another pain struck, stronger this time. He grabbed the edge of a table. What is this? The discomfort spread. His stomach churned violently. Sweat appeared on his forehead. The room blurred. Fear finally entered his chest. Real fear. He staggered toward the door. His legs betrayed him. He fell hard. Crash! The calabash shattered. Palm wine spread across the floor. Sálákò tried standing again.
Failed. The pain became unbearable. His breathing quickened. His vision darkened. For the first time in many months, Sálákò thought about death. Not the king's death, his own. And suddenly, all the confidence vanished. All the arrogance disappeared. All the pride faded. Because death has a way of making every man equal. No, his voice cracked. No, but destiny wasn't listening. Darkness closed around him. And Sálákò, the king's shadow, stopped moving. Hours later, the festival began winding down. Visitors prepared to leave. Musicians packed their instruments. The king finally noticed something unusual. Sálákò was nowhere to be found. The king frowned. Normally, Sálákò appeared whenever food, gifts, or attention were nearby. Today, nothing. The king looked toward the guard. Where is Sálákò? The guard bowed. I don't know, Kábíyèsí. Find him. Finally, one guard approached Sálákò's chamber. The door was slightly open. He pushed it gently, then froze. The scream brought everyone running. The king arrived moments later. Chiefs followed behind him. The moment they entered the room, silence fell. Heavy silence. Sálákò lay on the floor, motionless, his stomach swollen, his eyes wide open, the shattered remains of the calabash scattered around him. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The king stared, unable to believe what he was seeing. The Bákú, dead before the king? Oloyebi removed his cap slowly. Iyalode covered her mouth. Several guards lowered their heads. For a long moment, the only sound came from distant festival drums still echoing outside. Then the king whispered, "How?" Nobody answered, because everybody was wondering the same thing. The palace erupted into chaos. Investigations began immediately. Guards searched everywhere. Witnesses were questioned. The palm wine tapper who delivered the gift became the obvious suspect. And by the time search parties reached Adeniyi's compound, it was empty. Abeni was gone too. Brother and sister had vanished from the village before sunset. That night, the village fell silent. The story spread quickly. Sálákò, the lazy boy, the king's shadow, the untouchable man, dead. Not beside the king, not because of tradition, not because destiny demanded it, but because of his own greed.
The next day, Inside the palace, the king sat alone. The festival decorations were still hanging. The drums had gone silent. The laughter had disappeared. Only sadness remained. The king stared at the empty courtyard, thinking, remembering, regretting. At first, Sálákò was amusing, then frustrating, then unbearable. Yet, beneath everything, the king had hoped he would change, that responsibility would mature him, that privilege would humble him. Instead, the opposite happened. The king closed his eyes. If only. But there was no point finishing the sentence. History never listens to if only. The next evening, the chiefs gathered inside the palace. A difficult decision had to be made. Normally, an bákú received honor, respect, ceremony. But Sálákò's story was different. His final months had brought pain to too many people, too many families, too many innocent villagers. After much discussion, a decision was reached. Sálákò would not receive a hero's farewell. He would not receive songs of praise. He would not receive royal honors. Instead, he would receive a simple burial beyond the sacred grounds. A quiet ending for a noisy life. The following morning, a small procession carried his body away. No drummers, no dancers, no celebration. Only silence. The villagers watched. Some shook their heads. Others looked away. A few whispered prayers. Omotayo cried until she had no tears left. Babajide walked slowly behind the procession, his shoulders heavy, his steps slower than they had ever been. Saro walked beside him. Neither spoke. When they finally reached the edge of the forest, the procession stopped. The grave had already been prepared. The workers lowered Sálákò carefully. And just like that, Sálákò's story ended. The boy who wanted wealth without work. The man who wanted respect without character. The king's shadow who became a shadow of himself. For it was not the poisoned palm wine that truly killed him. It was greed. It was laziness. It was pride. And as our elders say, the goat that spends its life chasing another man's yam eventually meets the butcher.
Moral lessons. 1. Wealth gained without discipline often ends in disaster. 2. Power does not change character, it reveals it. 3. A single bad decision can destroy years of opportunity. 4. Revenge may satisfy anger, but wisdom prevents tragedy. 5. Respect is earned through character, not fear.
Fully. If destiny suddenly handed you power tomorrow, would it make you better or simply reveal who you already are? If this story taught you something, touched your heart, or reminded you of someone, then welcome home. This is the Storytime Lounge, where every story leaves a footprint in the mind.